Welcome to From the Floor, a mini show showcasing the games past and present at the Twincade Arcade Bar in Griffith, Indiana. Today we take a look at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game released by Konami in 1989 for the arcades. It was based off the animated series from '87 that most of us grew up with and know and love. It's today's subject on From the Floor. My first introduction to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was in this album, the classic Master of Puppets from Metallica. As a teenage kid, I was a huge fan. I even sported one of those full back patches sewn to the back of a jean jacket, displaying my love of Master of Puppets. In the album liner notes, Metallica gave a shout out to something called the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This piqued my curiosity, and I soon found myself reading and enjoying the uber violent and gritty black and white Turtles comics that were being released at the time. In '87, the Turtles cleaned up for the cartoon series and soon would be a household name, complete with an awesome toy line and millions of other TMNT branded products. This brings me to '89, when the Turtles game made its way to the arcades. It was a natural progression for me to jump on it and spend lots of time and quarters, especially since the arcade was my second home. Now in the present day, it's an honor to own, discuss, and share the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade cabinet with Twincade customers and Twincadia viewers. The cabinet is a huge 4-player Konami cabinet. It's an obvious perfect setup considering there are 4 Ninja Turtles. The side art is a 6-foot-tall striking mural that depicts a live-action April O'Neil looking tight in her yellow one-piece with big curly red hair and holding the camera for her news reporting while the Turtles emerge from the sewers and plunge from the buildings in the New York streets. The marquee shows the Turtles ready to engage Shredder in an epic battle, and the control panel is decked out with a row of New York brownstones. Each player has an 8-way joystick and also an attack and jump button. Jump then attack to do a jumping attack or hit both buttons at the same time for a special move. You can also throw some enemies by using the attack button up close. Each joystick and button set are color-coded and they match the Turtles' masks except for one. For some odd reason, the game was released with a yellow joystick and buttons for Michelangelo instead of his usual orange. In order to choose the turtle you want to play, there is a corresponding coin slot below your choice. The game is a side-scrolling beat-em-up that starts with Splinter directing the Turtles into a burning apartment building to save April. Once inside, the gang immediately clashes with the Foot Clan, who are soldiers in Shredder's army. After the Turtles work their way through the flaming hallway, they come to an in-boss room where April O'Neil helplessly awaits saving as the room burns around her. Seconds later, a drill-like transport module appears from the ground and unleashes in-level boss and popular Turtles villain Rocksteady, with guns blazing to destroy the heroes. Just as you defeat Rocksteady and you think you've saved April, Shredder swoops in, grabs her, and crashes out a window in the burning building. The Turtles continue on through 4 more scenes, saving April and Splinter, who later gets kidnapped, and fighting more bosses pulled right from the TV show, such as Bebop, Krang, and of course, Shredder himself, where you meet for an epic end battle in the Technodrome. You'll also fight your way through city streets, the sewers, a hidden factory, and more, punching, kicking, and interacting with the environment in the way of smashing fire hydrants, sending parking meters flying into enemies, or even falling into a sewer manhole. Although common and taken for granted these days, I remember these small environment interactions as welcome and nice touches in early gaming. The game is short. You and your friends will finish it in about 25 minutes, but it's fantastic fun with tons of replayability.
Thank you, Philip, for having me on From the Floor. I'm Marcus with Retro Game Players, and I'm happy to talk to you guys about 1989's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. Now, I was lucky enough to see this game launch and debut in arcades, and I must say, it was an absolutely phenomenal experience. But with that said, the hype of the Ninja Turtles were at their peak at this time. You had the comics from the early 80s, an amazing wide audience reaching cartoon, and then a movie that was actually going to be produced and released, I believe, in 1990s when that came out. So this beat that to the punch, and when you first saw the arcade cabinet itself, it was kind of mind-blowing. I mean, not only was there a crowd around it with lines, but there was absolutely amazing artwork on the side. It had a beautiful picture of April O'Neil with a camera. The marquee was awesome and like called to you. And then the attract screen, you know, it had like the theme song from the cartoon playing, it had animations, it had bios flashing by of the various turtles, including Splinter and April. Just really high quality attention to detail there. And then the arcade control panel, the overlay was awesome too. There's only 2 buttons you could use, but each joystick was color coordinated for each turtle. So whoever you hit start with, that's who you would play with. And depending if you started a game, you could play as Donatello or whatever, but you could always join somebody's game too. And so it was just so fun. It was a great social game in an arcade, and it was a quarter muncher. This thing would deplete your quarter reserves faster than you'd want, especially with those boss fights. And those boss fights are another thing. That's when they started to take that damage. You could really tell because they would start to flash almost a neon pink, a neon red. And that's how you knew you were starting to win. Konami would duplicate this same style of a beat-em-up over other arcade games like Cowboys of Moo Mesa, X-Men, Bucky O'Hare, and The Simpsons, just to name a few. So this was an early example of that, and if you haven't played it, I highly recommend you guys play the original arcade game. Now, there is something to be said about the home ports or the different versions that came out. On the Nintendo, the arcade game was absolutely brilliant at the time, and it was really fun and great to see, at least, you know, somewhat of a port, but it did not live up at all to the actual arcade game. And then similarly, the Genesis or Mega Drive version of Hyperstone Heist, that's a great game, and Turtles in Time on Super Nintendo are also great, but the arcade game is where it's at. So if you can, find that game in your local arcade or your local whatever, and check it out. That's my recommendation, and until next time, you guys know what to do. You keep that shit retro by playing the TMNT Arcade game later on.
Special thanks to my guest Marcus. He has a wonderful YouTube channel with tons of content that features his variety show called Retro Gaming Sunset, and also some rad music to check out. Game reviews, gameplays, and all kinds of things retro. He's been doing it for years, and there's tons of content to keep you occupied for weeks. I'll have a link in the description. And as always, until next time, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and check out all the videos on the Twincade channel.
That's what's up. A little exaggerated.